Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We are presented by CLNS Media. Today on the show, we've got good friend of the program making a terrific return. It is Dieter Kurtenbach of the Daily Dieter Podcast and of the Bay Area News Group. I just wanted to make sure and gave a pause for your podcast because it's so tremendously named and such a good product.
Oh yeah, let's go with the latter one. That's the first time I've heard that in quite a bit. I didn't know that we were going to start this off with blatant lies and patronization. Cool.
Is there any other way for us to start a podcast, Dieter?
No, especially one as beautiful and as well listened as this.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, really just high level stuff here. We're going to talk about trades. Really, I saw the Anthony Davis article from Adrian Wojnarowski this week, and it got my mind kind of working. I wanted to try and talk to some people about some potential trades that could be going down. And to be honest, I don't think an Anthony Davis trade is happening anytime soon, just because. No. There's no reason for New Orleans to trade Anthony Davis, but we're going to get conceptual. We're going to talk about the Anthony Davis stuff. We're going to talk about a couple other fake trades and some other potential names that could be on the market going forward. And anytime that I do that, I thought that Dieter Kurtenbach was the best person to have on the podcast. So how's it going, buddy? Is everything good?
I'm doing great, man. The Warriors, I cover the Warriors professionally. They pay me to do that. And it's been really boring lately, so I'm glad to get out of the Warriors mindset, stop having to. I mean, they played the Grizzlies last night, and I never thought I'd say this, but the Golden State Warriors are boring. So talking about Marc Gasol, talking about DeAndre Jordan, talking about all these things that may or may not happen, it's very it makes my mind a bit more limber and takes the depression off of it. So I'm excited to get into it.
So yeah, it's really funny that you mentioned that. So just to kind of let the listeners go behind the veil a little bit. On Christmas Eve, you guys are going to have a podcast on previewing every single Christmas Day game that is going to happen on the Monday coming up here. It's with Jared Weiss. And when we got to the Cavs-Warriors game, we spent a good amount of time talking about the Cavs. And then we got to the Warriors, and my literal statement was, to be honest, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this team. It's kind of boring right now. I don't really have much to say.
I mean, it says something about the Warriors that they only had 2 fast break points against Memphis on Wednesday night. So it's the middle of the season. It's kind of boring for everybody. But when the team that is supposed to kind of have it at another level than everybody else because of injury, and frankly because they're disinterested, is also one of the least entertaining teams in the NBA right now. It's just painful.
There's just no narrative to attach yourself to. There's no conflict, right? So last night, Laura made me watch a movie called Home Again. It's the Reese Witherspoon movie.
Oh, is that the one? Is that the one where she has the 3 kids living, or young adult?
Right.
Oh man.
So it was the most painfully Caucasian movie I've ever seen, first and foremost.
Cool.
Literally, there is not any person of color in the movie. It's kind of incredible. Living out in Los Angeles. I get that those circles happen, but it was pretty crazy.
You're telling me that there's just white people in the Palisades? Is that what you're saying?
But the other part of that movie was that the reason that it wasn't very good is there was no conflict. It's just white people staying very rich white people and then becoming rich white people that will be eventually rich white filmmakers. That was the entirety of the movie. So with the Warriors, I'm just there's no conflict here. They're good. They're going to stay good. They're going to be good the rest of the way. There's nothing interesting about this. There's no conflict there for me. And that's why I'm having trouble with the Warriors right now.
I mean, even flip it the other side. If they lose to Memphis on Wednesday night, who gives a shit? What's it matter?
Yeah.
There's built-in excuses. What's worse is they're just not playing beautiful basketball, and you can only analyze that so deeply because it's an outlier. It's if Steph Curry's not around, I mean, I guess you could extrapolate it into say if Steph Curry's not around, they can still compete for a title, but it's December. I'm sure I'm going to overhype Christmas. I know that Christmas is going to happen. They're going to try harder, maybe, who knows. And that game, because it's built up into so much, and we've been talking about it all year, every year. It's 364 days until the next time the Warriors play the Cavs on Christmas. That's going to get built up. But they play the Lakers on Friday. I guess Lonzo and the Lakers, they've played pretty well. That will be semi-interesting. And then I can't remember who they play on Saturday, but just Man, the entire season was going to be like this. It was going to be a slog. I thought that we would hold it off a little bit. In fact, I thought that the injuries would make things interesting, but it's doing quite the opposite. It's taking out any possible intrigue or any chance that something really cool might happen, and it's just turning it into like regular basketball, in which the Warriors are better and no way more interesting.
Yeah, let's just kind of move away from the Warriors for a minute here.
Yes, please.
I have a fake trade idea for the Warriors later, but we'll get to that later on.
Okay.
The first thing I want to talk about is the Anthony Davis thing, right? Because Adrian Wojnarowski, as I said at the top here, had a very interesting article just about, Anthony Davis in general and how, he's left behind and left out of the discussion of young bigs so often in this, narrative of all of the talent in the NBA, and people forget how young Anthony Davis is. And he had some interesting quotes, like I guess that Dell Demps told him that Boston has been calling, but nothing was going to happen. And then he said, at the same time, though, you see how organizations treat players. Isaiah Thomas, DeMarcus Cousins told me that the Kings told him that they weren't going to be traded, but they traded him. Isaiah took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they traded him. It makes you wonder, does the organization really have my back? I've been loyal to this organization. I love it here. I love this team. I think we're moving in the right direction. DeMarcus, Rondo, some other players that are helping us, but people get judged on winning, and I want to win. You and I have shit on the Pelicans organization pretty heavily.
Yeah, there's a lot to shit on.
I struggle with seeing how this team is going to get beyond the first round of the playoffs at its ceiling.
I have a hard time seeing how this team makes the playoffs. I know that they've exceeded our expectations. I think both of our expectations, but I have a hard time seeing how this team is one of the 8 best in the Western Conference. I mean, it's just December. There's plenty of time for it to go up or down, but I haven't looked at the standings in a while, to be totally honest. But this is not one of the 8 best teams in the Western Conference by my estimation.
I will say by talent, yes, I think I agree with you. I think I would rather be Utah than them, and Utah is I think a couple of games behind them, maybe like a game and a half behind them. But having said that, you know what, the Clippers have fallen off, Memphis has fallen off in a pretty significant way,
right?
So
they might win by just they might have to
they might get in because
default,
not even necessarily default. I mean, they're 15 and 16 and in the 8 seed right now, so maybe it would be default, but on the same token, I think they're a little bit better than what we thought they would be this year, and I think that's worth commending. The problem is that given how capped out they are, given the fact that a lot of their players other than Anthony Davis aren't really young, they kind of are what they are, I just don't really see a track forward for this team to win in the way that Anthony Davis is going to want them to win.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest issue. Okay, so Davis is signed. He's in the second year of his deal. He signed that big 5-year, $127 million contract. He's through 2021, the 2021 season. He's on this Pelicans team, and this Pelicans team is probably going to have to double down with exactly what they have right now. And I mean, if they don't keep DeMarcus Cousins, and I would advocate that they don't, I think that there's an addition by subtraction aspect to DeMarcus Cousins, no matter where he might be. But
I would fight you on that, but I understand.
Okay, but if they have to sign him, right? It's much like the Drew Holiday situation. They have to sign him. There's no alternative but to sign him. I don't see how this team gets any better other than Anthony Davis improving naturally, and then getting really lucky, or luck and skill are very similar. Depends on what perspective you're looking at. Getting lucky in the middle, late part of the draft. And there's no indication that this is a well-run organization. In fact, all the indications are it's the exact opposite. I just see a level of stasis here. And if they make it in as the 8th seed, and just looking at it now and all the points you brought up, they're probably going to make it in as the 7th or the 8th seed to the playoffs. That doesn't mean they're the 8th best team or the 7th best team, but they're going to make it because of injury and, my God, the bottom of the Western Conference. They're not getting past Houston. They're not getting past Golden State. They're not going to give San Antonio a series. They might be able to win a game or two off of Minnesota, but they're way worse than Portland. They're way worse than Oklahoma City, and they're way worse than Denver. They're the outlier. They're the ugly duckling amongst the playoff teams, where there's a couple of pretty distinct classes. And I mean, if I'm Davis, if this frustration is bubbling up now, and I think it was prompted, and he wouldn't say it on his own, unprompted. But the right question was asked, and he spoke openly about it. If this is already bubbling up, I just can't see how this time next year we're not at a critical mass of Anthony Davis trade rumors, because there's no alternative to, I think, the current situation they have now. And this is just going to be perpetual mediocrity with that organization, and that's about as good as they can do.
So, yeah, here's kind of my issue with Anthony Davis, right? So you said he signed through 2021. He's actually signed through 2020 because that year is an option year, the 2021 year. So,
is it?
Yeah, he can opt out of this contract in 2020.
Okay.
So really, they have 2
extension,
years. Yeah, like they have 2 years to figure this out and convince him to stay. I get that he thinks they're on the right track right now.
They're better than they were last year.
Right.
So the arrow is pointing up. The question is, where's the ceiling?
Right. So it's like a baseball team. So like the Philadelphia Phillies just signed Carlos Santana, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're trying to attract free agents next summer, right?
Right.
The thing is, though, the Phillies already had one of the most interesting minor league systems in the entire, Major League Baseball, or the young talent core. It's not really a minor league system anymore, but like Rhys Hoskins and J.P. Crawford and out there, the left fielder. Like they have a lot of really interesting pieces that, long term going forward, agents can run that kind of, analysis. They can figure out the way things are going to go and the way that organizations look going forward. With the Pelicans,
they've entered a second stage, the Phillies.
Right.
They're now in the stage of, we're going to augment this core. We have a core, now we're going to augment it, and it's going to come together and be a good thing. And you can sell that to prospective free agents.
Right. With the Pelicans, though, they just moved up the course to kind of make it look better, right? Or really because they didn't have another choice given where Anthony Davis is in his contract. But, they just kind of moved up and capped themselves out going forward. Like, right now, this team just doesn't have cap space next summer.
Not at all. The second they signed Drew Holiday, it was over.
Right. And that's not including their cap hold on DeMarcus Cousins, which they're undoubtedly going to keep. So,
where do the Pelicans go? I mean, the only way that you can make this team, the only way you can improve this team's ceiling is by blowing it up. And that's not an instantaneous overnight thing. That's going to take the length of the current Anthony Davis contract. So you're basically stuck with this thing. I have a hard time seeing. I understand that he's enjoying it right now and that he values loyalty. But if I'm Anthony Davis and I'm looking at this Pelican situation, I'm looking at it. It's a subsidiary of the New Orleans Saints. They're going to double down on Boogie Cousins, which, I mean, that's worked out for everybody who's ever done that before. There's no creativity in that front office to find a way to improve this roster going forward, other than making the obvious move that's in front of them, which they have to do just based on the fact that there's no alternative. I'd be looking at this situation and just being like, there's nothing for me here. And yes, he's young, but there's only so many good years in a body, and he's wasting them in New Orleans. If he's honestly interested in winning at a high level, if he's cool with being mediocre and enjoying the city and having fun, then great, but there's no indication that that's his mindset at all. And again, you just look at the writing on the wall. This is as good as it's going to get. It might get a little better, but you're never going to be competing with those best teams in the Western Conference, much less in the NBA. And they have the flexibility and the ability to do something now to move them. I would take advantage of the opportunity if there are good ones out there.
Yeah, and obviously the one that's going to be out there is Boston, right? Like, if we're having an Anthony Davis discussion, we have to talk about Boston. Boston has $1 billion first-round picks, right? Like, just full stop. Like, they have the Lakers pick potentially this year. They have the 2019 Memphis pick, which could be incredibly valuable if it ends up stretching out to 2021, because it's unprotected in 2021. They have a 2019 pick from either Philadelphia or Sacramento that's going to be really valuable. Basically, they're in the best shape they can possibly be to go out and get an Anthony Davis. They also have Jason Tatum. They have Jaylen Brown. And, they have all these young pieces that could easily be, these centerpieces for a player of Anthony Davis's caliber.
Right.
If you are New Orleans, let's say hypothetically, this summer comes along, because they're not going to trade Anthony Davis in the middle of the year, full stop.
Right.
But this summer comes along, you lose DeMarcus Cousins. He goes to Los Angeles or whatever. You're still capped out. You don't really have a place to go.
Hold on, I got to stop you there. Are they going to lose DeMarcus Cousins? Because I cannot imagine that there's going to be a robust market for DeMarcus Cousins.
I think DeMarcus is going to get maxed from someone. DeMarcus has been really good.
I think he's going to get maxed from somebody. I just don't think it will be a robust market of teams willing to max him.
Well, no, there aren't a ton of teams with cap space, but he's still probably what? Is he the best free agent this year?
I mean, LeBron.
But I guess LeBron is actually a legit threat to leave. So he's probably the second best or third best, depending on what you think of Paul George. In the class.
But okay, I don't want to get down the rabbit hole on this one, but like, if I'm the Lakers and I have a young team, the last person I want to bring in on a max contract is DeMarcus Cousins.
I'm actually okay with it. He's been unbelievable this year. I
get it. He is an incredible basketball player.
He's shooting 36% this year on 6 3-pointers a game.
He's one of the 5 best basketball players on the planet. I have no problem saying that.
He really might be.
I have no problem saying that. Right now, he is the unicorn of all unicorns.
He might be better than Anthony Davis right now. It's close. It is a question if he is better than Anthony Davis.
But if only you got the basketball player and not the man.
Yeah, I'm okay with getting the man. If I'm paying the max, I'm fine with that.
If I'm paying the max, I want the full package, and I think Boogie is as much detriment as he is positive. I have totally switched. I mean, I understand that he is the darling because he is so talented and he's enigmatic and he's raw and real. But man, Andre Iguodala keeps talking. We keep talking about smart players. Just bring in smart players. I don't care how talented they are. Just bring in smart players. This is his mantra. Smart players will beat dumb players every time, no matter if so long as the talent is relatively comparable. And I just don't think that DeMarcus Cousins fits that mantra. I don't think DeMarcus Cousins would play on the Warriors. I don't think the Warriors would go out and get DeMarcus Cousins if they had the cap room. I think they would pass. That's just my read on the situation. I'm telling you. I think
they might. They might. They have a very real, they're in a weird enough spot, where they could. My point
is, if there was another Kevin Durant summer jump in the cap, and everybody had, the max room for a max contract, and it's LeBron, it's the same class that we have right now, they would go for Paul George over DeMarcus Cousins.
Well, yeah, he fits. He fits better than
DeMarcus Cousins. The basketball player would fit incredibly on the Warriors. Are you kidding me? A center who can play inside and out? What more could you
DeMarcus is going to have trouble with their defensive scheme, though. I guess that it doesn't really matter because they play Zaza half the time anyway, and he's just more mobile than Zaza. Yeah, he'd be an incredible fit.
They would not want to bring in DeMarcus Cousins, despite the fact that he would be unbelievable. He'd turn him into the Olympic team on the basis of he's a shithead. I wish I can extrapolate that, but let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about that, I guess. If I'm the Lakers and I'm bringing him in with a second free agent, if I'm bringing him in with LeBron as my other free agent, I'm fine with that.
Maybe because LeBron is the exact opposite, and maybe it evens out. But I mean, I would be hyper wary of bringing in DeMarcus Cousins. There's just so much there. He's just a loser, man. I don't know how to put it. I mean, it sounds so loose and Baylessy and nonsense, but the more I watch of Boogie Cousins, and we've seen him now for how long, the more out I am on him. And despite the fact that his talent is totally undeniable, and I'll be the first person to tell you that he is as good as it gets when it comes to the center position in the NBA, I just don't want that guy anywhere near my team. He's toxic.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, I will say.
Okay.
I think it's probably not worth belaboring the point, but I
think you're right.
I do not agree with it.
Fine. I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, I understand. That's fine. That's totally cool. I think it's a fair opinion to take. I just flat do not agree with it.
Yeah.
This year particularly, I think
they're going to be tossing money around.
Yeah. This year particularly, I think he's actually kind of shown that he can play within a winning scheme. But that's fine, regardless.
Fair.
Anthony Davis, if you are New Orleans, you lose DeMarcus Cousins this summer. You are basically capped out. You're not in a place where you can go out and add much more than a $6 million player here, a mid-level exception there.
Nothing that's going to replace Boogie.
Right. What do? You trade him? I think you trade him.
You blow this son of a bitch up.
I think you blow it up as well. if you are
I don't think
New
the Pelicans
Orleans,
are smart enough to do that.
I don't know if they are either, and I think there are actually very real issues in terms of them keeping a basketball team in that marketplace if they don't have Cousins and Davis.
Yes.
But, like, let's say that they decide to blow it up. What is the minimum you're taking from Boston?
Tatum.
Okay, that's hard for me. I don't know if I'm giving up Tatum.
It depends on. I mean, there's a lot of context.
But yeah,
there's a lot of context in the marketplace. I mean, listen, there's no question that Anthony Davis makes the Boston Celtics a better team. But do the Boston Celtics really need Anthony Davis? Do they They already have Al Horford. I understand that both Al Horford and I guess it would be just Horford in this scenario, can play the power forward spot, but it's not as bad as DeMarcus and Davis, but there's a bit of redundancy there when it comes to the 5 best guys on the court at one time lineup. And I just feel like, the flexibility that Celtics have, while Davis is as good, again, he's just as good as it gets, but I don't know if that's the exact route I would go to. Plus, you don't know what this team looks like with Gordon Hayward. And I feel like you got to see that through at least a little bit before you start going and adding another huge piece to the puzzle, because the long-term flexibility of those draft picks and the value of those contracts is such where you don't just give it up for anything. And you definitely don't give up a guy like Jason Tatum for something that you kind of already have, if you catch what I'm laying down.
I do. I think that to compete at the highest levels, though, to beat where LeBron is right now, the level that he's at right now, and to beat the Warriors going forward, they do need an Anthony Davis. They need someone like that. And plus, they would only have Al Horford under contract for 2 more years as well.
Right.
So, if you're assuming Anthony Davis,
it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that maybe that flexibility can be used better in some other place. But if they do land on Davis, okay, who would? I would, you try to lowball. I mean, the Celtics are trying to get off for as little as possible, and the Pelicans want to get as much as possible. And I would, if I'm the Pelicans, knowing that I have a couple of years left on the contract, knowing that, blowing it up, there's really no further downside, so you might as well get something really good in return. What's the worst case scenario? Oh man, we have to keep Anthony Davis and, keep some fans on this team. They might be willing to do that in the first place just because of the market and the situation that they have going on there. I don't leave without Tatum. I say that you guys have Jaylen Brown. You have wings coming out your ass. We need the guy who can be a superstar. And here's a superstar in return, a ready-made superstar in return. We need the next best thing, or the upcoming one.
So I think that I could make the deal without Tatum if I was New Orleans.
I'd love to hear it.
I might be willing to do Jaylen Brown, as the player centerpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Another player centerpiece, we can argue if it should be Terry Rozier, one of their other young pieces that they have under team control for a while, a secondary piece that could potentially grow into a starter, we'll say, and they have a few of them. There are cases to be made for many of those younger players in this capacity. I would probably ask for Rozier, though. I think Brown and Rozier would be my 2-player package.
Okay.
In terms of picks, I would then ask for the Memphis pick in 2019, and I think the Lakers pick in 2018.
I would try to get the 2 picks in Tatum if I'm New Orleans. And if I had to choose between one of the 2, I'd take the Memphis pick in 19.
I think I agree with you, but
Tatum and the Memphis pick, you're coming. I would argue that New Orleans came out somewhere relatively even given the context. They'd probably come across, if you get Tatum in general, it's a win.
Yeah.
But if you can get that and then a high draft pick, Memphis being the best option there, the Memphis pick being the best option there, I mean, that's a really good way to move on from the best player in quasi-franchise history, whatever the hell we're calling the Pelicans / Hornets.
It is. I
would have a hard time making that deal if I'm Boston.
I would have a hard time doing it. I think I might do it, though. If it was only 1 pick in addition to Tatum, I think I might do it.
Right now, I mean, we're looking at it today. That's going to be a really good pick.
With the Memphis pick, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also, then in that case, you're still keeping the Lakers pick. You're keeping a 2019
No,
Clippers
totally.
pick, which,
yeah, you have the arsenal. You can give up prospects if you got a loaded farm system. I get it. But that's a really good. I mean, that's Tatum and another guy like Tatum or whatever it is you're looking for. That's Tatum, a guy who has proven that he is worth the pick that he was drafted in or he was selected with already.
Right.
A guy who has limitless upside, as far as anyone can tell, and another top 5 pick probably at the least. I think if we're just looking at the situation as it's currently constructed.
The problem is that it can't be a top 5 pick until 2021, and if Memphis,
I was about to ask,
gets a little bit better in let's say like in 2019, Mark.
What's the Lakers 2018? I mean, there's what are the protections on that?
The Lakers
I should have this in front of me.
Yeah, the Lakers 2018 pick is it has to be between 2 and 5.
Oh, right. That was a weird one.
Yeah, it's
the Lakers aren't going to draft number 1 though. Like they're not that bad.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're going to be that bad. I don't think that this pick is going to transfer though, because I don't know if they're going to.
They're not that far off though.
In the bottom 5 though, because they're actually playing a little bit better recently too.
Yeah, but they're 11 and 18. They are playing a little bit better, but the Lakers kind of do that every now and again. They're 11th in the Western Conference, but they're only. Well, they're 3 or 4 games better than Dallas and Memphis right now. Atlanta's going to have the most amount of ping pong balls, but there's lottery reform again this year, no?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they'll be in it. There's a chance.
Yeah.
It's not a high chance. It's a better chance than they would normally have or previously have.
Well, the Lakers pick is after this year, though. Or like the lottery reform is after this year. It does not take effect.
So that starts in 2019. That starts with that Memphis pick.
Yeah. So
I'm glad that we've clarified all of this. I probably should have known it off the top of my head, but I don't know. And the other thing too is I still don't feel like I have a read of how Danny Ainge values picks.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that the Kyrie deal went down, it was just so unpredictable. No one saw that exact package coming. And I just have a hard time. I have a hard time figuring out. I mean, we thought that he would never move that Brooklyn pick, and then he's just have it. And then listen, it seemed like a 50-50 at the time. Kyrie has held up his end of the bargain, and then some. He's trying on defense. He's really thriving as the main man. It's worked out, and Cleveland got what they needed, which is the long-term security if LeBron leaves. I don't know, because the other thing too is that there's if Boogie leaves, okay, that's one thing. Now if if this starts to go downhill, or if it's if the Clippers somehow find a way with a bunch of two-way players in their in their starting lineup, or if Utah decides to actually start playing some good basketball, or the Lakers go on a run here and the 8th seed is up for grabs. I mean, this thing can get really ugly with Davis. I mean, the cat is somewhat already out of the bag when it comes to where his head is at and how he wants to win. If this team is clearly not winning right now, if sort of this, treadmill that they're on currently stops, I mean, there could be resolution. It can snowball. I think that there could be resolution before the trade deadline this year.
I mean, there's nothing think that'll happen. I don't
think there's anything holding it back. And then, well, the only thing holding it back is New Orleans continuing to tread water.
Yeah, I think that they would rather continue to tread water this year.
I think that they're willing to continue to tread water into perpetuity.
Yeah, that might be true. That might be fair.
What other teams could Davis go to? What other teams are?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Like
a viable trade option, because I have one that I think. I mean, listen, it would be.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think that they don't have a tenth of the assets that Boston has, but we talk a lot about DeMarcus Cousins going to DC and playing for the Wizards. I think that Anthony Davis would be tremendous there. And going off of Davis's comments, where you need 3 or 4 All-Stars to compete, I know that they don't have I guess there's a Kentucky connection there, but
there is.
I know that Beal and Otto Porter aren't necessarily Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, but that's a pretty nice 1, 2, 3, 4 you got going on in Washington.
Well, I would think you'd have to give up one of them. Like, you couldn't get Anthony. If you're the Wizards, you can't get Anthony Davis without one of those, and Kelly Oubre probably.
I mean, give up Oubre. I think he's kind of a shithead too. So I don't.
He's not. He's. I will say that. I will battle back on you on that one. He's not.
Okay.
But
I don't have a great. I'll be fair. I don't have a great read on Kelly Oubre, but he seems like a fancy boy for sure. I'll give him that. That no read one way or another on the fancy boy aspect, but there's a lot going on with Kelly Oubre, and I don't think he's a good enough player to have that much going on.
I think he's really good. I'll say it. Like I think he's going to be like a
hopefully
17 point per game guy. Like I think he's going to be pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
If he gets to like a spot like New Orleans where they let him like kind of do his thing, like in Washington, it's probably more like 12 points a game because he'll be the fourth option all the time. But if you're New Orleans, I don't know if you're getting a better offer than Otto Porter and Kelly Oubre and like a couple picks.
Not unless Boston comes to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think Boston would come to play, but like. Yeah, I guess Boston could offer more, but like
Boston can offer more and not even go into the good stuff.
I think they definitely have to go into the good stuff to surpass that offer, to surpass Porter and Oubre. Like Porter.
The problem with Porter is that you already have that big fat contract.
Yeah, he does. That's true.
I mean, Oubre is cheap and controllable and all that stuff. Like Porter, listen, Porter's been really good this year, but Porter's not going to be anything. He's not going to be the guy you can build a team around. He's no superstar. He's a really, really excellent role player, but they maxed him out because of the situation they were in. Right. I think New Orleans can empathize with that situation. And while I think any team would love to have Otto Porter, I think that you need to be in a really specific spot where you have a number one and you have a number two, and you really just need to have a nice, solid, reliable number three. New Orleans needs stars. They need someone to replace the only star that this franchise has had since they got to New Orleans. I mean, I guess now they have Boogie, but like this guy is the franchise in that city. And I don't think Kelly Oubre is going to get that job done. I think that if Boston just, I think that they can beat it with just Jaylen Brown just based on potential.
Then Porter, I think you can make a case that Porter would have has more star power than Jaylen Brown, we'll say. Maybe not. He's not more valuable because Jaylen has the 2 cheap years still. But I think from a star, if you're just going sheer star hunting, I think you can make a case that Porter is the guy you want instead of Brown.
And it also depends on if you're getting rid of Jrue Holiday, if you're not having DeMarcus Cousins going forward. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. Luckily, there's not as many moving parts as, say, like a really competently run team. But yeah, I mean, the other places, I mean, if we're talking today and the right now, Cleveland, as always.
I thought about that, but I don't know what they can give up other than the Brooklyn pick. And you need more than the Brooklyn pick.
I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about Tristan Thompson?
Not well enough. I was thinking like Atlanta maybe. Like Atlanta has a couple of high picks that they're going to have coming from their own selves. They have both the 2018 picks for Houston and Minnesota. They have Cleveland's 2019 pick as well. Like, if you just want to take a bunch of flyers on stuff, then, maybe, but I don't know why Atlanta's doing that and abandoning a rebuild. Like, Boston, to me, is the very clear one with Washington is like a number 2.
Well, and then there's Houston and Portland.
I don't know how Houston gets there.
I have no idea either, but I just trust that Daryl Morey would find a way.
Yeah, like Portland, I guess you could. I mean, what you'd have to give up CJ.
Probably.
Yeah, like you have to give up CJ, and I don't think they have enough beyond that. Like unless they love Zach Collins.
They're in a weird spot. I mean, maybe Collins can do it if you just totally deplete the draft prospects going forward. Maybe I'm just throwing names out there. These aren't very well thought. I mean,
you have to start throwing names out there. It's fine.
Davis is going to be pissed if he gets traded to Milwaukee or Atlanta. Like, it makes all the sense in the world. Like, if Atlanta's interested in something like that, and if they want to put the masses in the seats right now, getting Anthony Davis in a weak Eastern Conference, like, yeah, I can see them in the Miami, New York range, Charlotte range in the Eastern Conference.
And like Miami can't do it. Like, Miami's obviously a spot that you have to.
That would be a great spot, but man, what that offseason, we talked about it when it happened. It's like, man, you're really doubling down on mediocrity, aren't you?
Right.
Like, you guys just want to be 48 wins max forever. And,
right, and they don't have 2018's first round pick, and they don't have 2021's first round pick. So there's not really a whole lot they can do there.
I mean, listen, Deion Waiters is a very valuable trade chip, but I don't think that's going to get it done. There's not a lot of places for him. There's not a lot of places for him that New Orleans would also be like, okay, we feel like we're at least recouping some of what we're about to lose.
Yeah, I think for me, the one that makes the most sense is Boston for Jaylen Brown. Honestly, like maybe it's like you involve Marcus Smart too, because you have to make the money match somehow. So maybe it's like Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart in a sign and trade. In a couple of picks too.
Right.
What sign and trades are really hard. You're right. Yeah.
Is there any chance that Milwaukee could get involved?
I don't think so.
Man, that'd be cool though.
They lost their 2018 pick. Chris Middleton's actually like really important. Like maybe Jabari. Like if New Orleans loves Jabari and thought he was just full stop best asset period they can get back, then 2020 and 2022 first round picks.
You can make that argument if you're delusional.
Right. Exactly. Like it would take a bit of delusion to do that. So like it's Boston.
Here's one that listen, I don't want to go on to this too far, but like Chicago doesn't know what the hell it's doing.
I thought about them too. They're interesting, actually. They're sneaky under the radar.
They have players that they can move and draft picks and stuff. And I mean, if they're looking to get into that Miami range forever, I got to move for you. Go get Anthony Davis, bring him back home.
Yeah, like you could say, whatever their top 3 pick is this time around, Lauri Markkanen and. Give up Markkanen. Like maybe Zach LaVine or something. Like you could say that. Like maybe it's Chris Dunn. I don't know. Like
it's probably. I mean, I would move. I would try to not move Markkanen if at all possible. But
you can't. You need a second. You need like a second highly valuable piece here. You can't just say the number 1 pick or whatever.
I know. And if I'm willing to, I mean, yeah. If I'm New Orleans and in Chicago, I need your draft pick this year and I need Markkanen. That's what I'm asking for. Plus, let's fill it out.
Yeah, I want more. Yeah. Like, I can't just do that.
Future first. Way down the line first. Maybe. I wouldn't touch Dunn. Plus, you got Drew. I mean, maybe there's just a full roster swap to be had there. Drew and...
Well, no, maybe that is it. Maybe
everybody.
Since you have Drew, maybe it's Markkanen and LaVine, that number 1 overall pick, and then like a future first.
Yeah.
But then you're kind of crippling your organization in 2 years when he leaves because he wants to win, even if he's home.
Right.
God, how much would Chicago people be pissed?
they would one, be super pissed, and 2, that sounds exactly like a move that the Bulls would make.
Yeah. I thought about that. That's not the worst idea I've heard.
No. Now, here's the other thing too, and this has been something that's been floating around these parts mainly because we're bored. The Warriors core doesn't have to stay together forever.
Yeah.
And you got Steph locked up, but Clay is movable and Draymond is movable. And, KD is pliable based on his contract situation. And there's been talk, I don't think any of it has basis, but there's been talk at least of the Warriors are trying to put out there that like they could become flexible enough to get Paul George. And they've been putting that out there for a while. Like if they really wanted to, they could add Paul George this upcoming off season. Why not? Why not tap into that flexibility and go get Anthony Davis?
Honestly,
I don't think I mean, you'd have to. It'd be Clay and any first round pick you got going on.
Honestly, if I'm New Orleans, that doesn't do it for me.
No, it doesn't do it for me either, and I like Clay a lot. But it's listen, Clay's got some cachet. I would argue that Clay is more valuable as a trade asset than probably he is, just because he plays on the most high-profile team in the league.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that he's a great asset, but if you're New Orleans and you're getting someone for Anthony Davis, he can't be on a 1-year deal. Just can't.
No, you're right, and you don't want Draymond, so
yeah.
You can't have Draymond and Boogie on the same team. It just wouldn't work.
Well, I mean, the thing is though, like if the only way this happens this summer is if Boogie leaves or if Boogie's gone. I think otherwise they stay with the status quo.
I mean, how shitty is that going to be for Boogie if Boogie stays and then Anthony Davis gets traded?
I don't think they will. Like, I
you just think that they're just going to stay like this forever?
I think that if they would get DeMarcus on a long-term contract. They would stretch it out for another year and see how it goes.
Interesting. By then, the Bulls could be in a much better situation to make a trade.
Right. Let's talk about some other pieces here. I think we've talked enough about Anthony Davis. To me, it's Boston. Occam's razor should just be the way we think about this. The simplest answer is the easiest answer. It's the right answer.
It's Boston. And I just don't see it happening.
I think it could this summer, but I mean, again, to me, I don't know that I'm in. Tatum's hard. If it was just Tatum and one pick, I think I would. If it was more than that, I think that I would probably pass. And then make them take because still Jaylen Brown and 3 other valuable pieces is a better offer than what they're going to get elsewhere, I think.
It also depends on, how well they draft going. Okay, we're done. We're done with Anthony Davis. It's Boston or bust pretty much.
Yeah. Or if Washington really wanted to get crazy.
If the Pelicans are totally incompetent, which they are.
That too. I'm going to run some names by you. Let me know what you think about them as trade assets. Marc Gasol.
I have a very hard time seeing he's a wonderful player. I have a very hard time seeing a good fit for Marc Gasol given the amount of money on that contract and just given sort of the slope of his career, which is, I would argue, directly tied to the slope of the Memphis Grizzlies.
So Marc Gasol, for those unaware, is on $22 million this year. He's on guaranteed $24 million next year and has a player option at $25 million the year after that. I don't think that's going to be bad money.
No, it's not bad money, but it's hard to make that work, right? And we're also in a tricky situation when it comes to Memphis with, Mike Conley still has a massive contract on that team. You still have Chandler Parsons getting paid to do nothing. You have an ownership situation with that franchise, which is as messy as any as I can remember in recent NBA history. We don't know who the owner of that damn team is right now. We don't know the direction of that team. Marc Gasol is widely credited with getting David Fizdale fired. So, he's got that baggage he's got to carry. Who is on somewhat of an albatrossian deal that Memphis could take on a shorter term than Marc, or even best case scenario on a player of equal caliber who can diversify the portfolio a little bit more with the same money? I just don't see a lot of guys in Marc Gasol's range, guys who are equivalent to Marc Gasol, who are out there and tradable.
Yeah, my team, again, is Milwaukee here, but I think Milwaukee made their move. It's hard for me to see how that works. They can make the money work with John Henson and Mirza Teletovic, or John Henson and, Matthew Dellavedova or something like that. And then you can throw in a Thon Maker or a Jabari Parker if you really think that you want your core going forward to be Giannis, Bledsoe, Middleton, and Marc Gasol for this 2 to 3 year stretch. I think there's a case to be made that team, under good circumstances, could make the finals.
Sure.
But at the same level, I don't know. That's tough.
It's uninspired.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best fit. Again, I think Boston's probably going to hoard for Anthony Davis. I don't think
Boston shouldn't go anywhere near Marc Gasol. I just don't see the fit there.
I think that Marc fits anywhere. But
no, totally, because he's an inside-out center. He's really good defensively. He just won Defensive Player of the Year a couple of years ago. Right. But you see the arrow, and while he's still got some really good basketball in him, you see the arrow. And man, the way that the Celtics, I think, conceptually want to go, which is they want to be 2 steps ahead of everybody else. They want to be like the Warriors, right? Where the Warriors were shooting a shit ton of threes before anyone else was really doing it, and they really ushered in a new era. The Celtics want to be that next level team, that team that's playing 5 out with 4 wings and a ball handler. And while Gasol can sort of play that role, he doesn't play it as well as Al Horford. And it's one thing to have Anthony Davis and Al Horford playing together. It's a whole other thing to have Marc Gasol and Al Horford playing together. And I would clearly you'd much rather have Anthony Davis, but I don't even know if I broach the subject of Marc Gasol with that team.
I think Portland could get interesting here. You throw Yusuf Nurkic in, you throw Mo Harkless in, and then you try and make the money work with,
Who has like an expiring or
the
one?
problem is that none of the
that's the thing. I mean, Memphis has to get alpha of this money. They either have to get a shit ton of draft capital, and that doesn't have to be high end draft capital, but like they have to get a lot of draft picks so that they can have more, plays at the table, or they have to get somebody who's going to come off the book so that they open up cap space. And I mean, I have a hard time. I have a hard time seeing how that contract moves. I understood why Memphis gave it to him, particularly when they gave it.
It was the right move, to be honest.
It was absolutely the right move. Then there was really no alternative. You're not going to lose Marc Gasol. He was playing his best basketball when he became a free agent. But I think those days, while he's still playing really good basketball, those days are behind him. Yeah. And, yeah, man, I just have a hard time seeing a schematic fit in a lot of places that want to take their game to the next level. I don't think he takes anyone's game to the next level. I think he just augments sort of a basic roster, if you know what I mean.
DeAndre Jordan, I think, is probably the next guy here. DeAndre.
Yeah. Cleveland.
It's a rental.
It's a rental, but Cleveland is the name. Like, everyone talks Cleveland with them, and I get it. I get it. I mean, where do you see him?
I just don't I don't know what what the Clippers get for him is the problem for me. Yeah, I don't know what the value is. Like, say Portland wants to make a run, we'll just throw Portland out there again.
Right.
Are you willing to trade Nurkic for him?
Sure. I mean, Nurkic is a good player. I think he's so spurty. I don't think that's a word, but he's just not a reliable guy. DeAndre Jordan might not have the same flashes as Nurkic, but you can kind of count on DeAndre Jordan every night, and I think that he really helps the lineup that Portland has in place right now. I think that their 4 out. I think their 4 out is a lot better if they have Jordan, because he just can create so much. He has that gravity on the pick and roll, and so you're now going back to a more dribble drive, high pick and roll system, which is frankly what I think Damian Lillard should be in, and I guess CJ McCollum as well, because he handles the ball a lot too. I mean, I think that's
they do a great job staggering.
That's how that team was built, and I feel like for some reason they're getting away from that. They're trying to not be themselves. Maybe they think it's too basic, but and Nurkic doesn't necessarily fit into the mold of sort of their best brand of basketball. Jordan does, so I would be totally willing to roll the dice on that. I don't know how that really helps the Clippers, though, to be totally honest. Like, if I'm the Clippers, what I'm looking for is long-term upside, and it might not work out, but I'm looking for upside, and there's nothing that Portland offers that has upside, and Portland should not even entertain the notion of giving up CJ McCollum for DeAndre Jordan.
No, not even a little bit. I mean, like, my best offer was going to be like Nurkic, Connaughton, and Harkless and Leonard. And
sure,
that just doesn't give them enough long-term salary relief.
If I'm Portland, you can throw in anybody on that damn bench. It seems like. I mean, if you want Noah Vonleh, have him. Like, who cares? Like, nobody on that team is sacred except for the 2 best players. And if I'm the Clippers, I don't know how I can rationalize that to a fan base that's already pretty jaded. Not that big, pretty jaded. And, the other thing that hangs over the Clippers nonstop is the fact that they want a new arena.
Yeah.
And they're in. They can't do that. They can't do that if they just have Blake Griffin.
Yeah. Yeah. Milwaukee's also another fit in much the same way as we just kind of threw out for Marc Gasol. They could throw, Thon Maker, and they could throw, salary filler in if they wanted to. They could make that work if they wanted. Who else interests you from a trade perspective? I'll let you throw out a name.
Boogie. I'd be interested to see if someone can make. I mean, I think that the way it would have to work is someone would have to just make an offer that blows the Pelicans out of the water.
Right.
Someone has to be saying, "Okay, we need Cousins. I know it's 1 year, expiring deal. I don't think you get bird rights in that situation. In fact, I'm pretty sure you don't."
On an expiring deal?
His expiring deal with the trade and stuff like that? You tell me.
Yeah, you do. That's fine.
Okay. So, fine, you get bird right, whatever. A team that's looking 1 year. I mean, I think that the way you look at it is, are the Cleveland Cavaliers willing to give up the Brooklyn pick for Cousins? There's no indication right now. In fact, all indications are the exact opposite. They're going to hold on to that Brooklyn pick like for all reasons. Because
I've got a sneaky one for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Toronto.
Okay, how does that work?
Toronto's on a couple of year timeline here. They're
total.
They're not going to trade Kyle Lowry, not going to trade DeMar DeRozan, probably not going to trade Ibaka. This would make this team a very limited team defensively. I think it would also make them like one of the 3 best offensive teams in the NBA.
No doubt.
So you use Valanciunas' contract, which is not good. Like that, that's not a good contract, but you use it to salary match.
Okay.
You give up Anunoby and you give up Norman Powell.
I really like OG.
So do I. But like, if you're getting DeMarcus Cousins, I don't think Anunoby is the guy that.
No. Yeah, that's not the deal breaker by any means.
Yeah.
I mean, Boston can get in on him too. I
don't think I do if I'm them though.
I don't. I mean, we don't have to rehash my thoughts, but I don't know. I mean,
And the Wizards again, like the Wizards could give up Oubre and Marcin Gortat and make salaries work.
I think on any other team, Boogie's on the market right now because they see the writing on the wall. But the Pelicans aren't every other team, and so he's not. Yeah. And it's going to take an out of the box offer to make anything happen. I don't even think they're shopping him.
Yeah,
I haven't heard.
I would imagine that right now they're not.
I haven't heard.
They would need to fall out of it
whatsoever.
They would need to fall out of it, I think, to shop.
Well, maybe I thought that would happen a lot sooner than it has. So maybe it's just a looming, or maybe we were entirely wrong one way or another. We'll find out here soon. We went through Gasol. I mean, Paul George.
The George one is interesting. I don't really know what to do with it. Like,
I don't know who else would want him. I mean, I guess there's a lot of teams that would want him, but
so like
the LA
if you're the
looms.
Clippers, do you take a shot on him? Like try and I don't even know.
Shit, yeah. I mean, I would.
I don't even know how to make that work.
I have no idea how to make it work, but it's a good idea. There's a lot of good ideas there. The LA thing, much like LeBron, ironically, the LA thing just looms so large. It's very difficult to. It's just difficult to roll the dice on them.
Yeah.
Unless you're the Lakers, and I don't see the Lakers giving up any assets for something that they can have.
Here's one: if you're Denver, do you take a chance on him and try?
What would you be giving up?
Make Wilson Chandler go to match the salaries.
Okay.
Are you willing to give up Moutier and Trey Lyles?
If I'm the Thunder, I'm not interested in Moutier.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. Or do you give up like Trey Lyles and Malik Beasley? I don't know if that's enough for the Thunder.
That's not going to sell.
Yeah. So like, I mean, like, I would try.
Beyond that, I mean, I don't think that there's any chance that Sam Presti
does that.
I don't think he trades Paul George at all. I think that would be admitting a mistake. And
I think I agree with you.
There's no reason to do that. Like, there's upside to him just leaving.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
That said, he's still out there. I mean, it's not as if he can't be traded. But yeah, I mean, and then LeBron. I mean, the Cavs are never going to trade him. But
also, like, one guy that I've been trying to think is like, does Dallas just buy out Nerlens Noel?
I have no idea. My favorite weird storyline that I can't explain the genesis of is like LeBron James loving Nerlens Noel. Like
there's a very clear genesis here.
I mean, what are you saying? The genesis from going from LeBron James to mentioning Nerlens Noel?
Yes.
Yeah. No shit. Yeah, I'm saying I don't understand why LeBron James loves Nerlens Noel. Like I like Nerlens Noel.
Are we certain that LeBron actually likes him, or are we certain that Rich Paul likes him?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like Nerlens is an interesting one. Like I might be willing to throw Dallas a second rounder for Nerlens, just for the hell of it, to see if I can. Like a little bit out of them. Like it seems very clear that they're done with it to me. Like I just don't think that they're gonna want to deal with it anymore.
Here's the guy that I have a question. I mean, is Harrison Barnes a guy that Dallas would be willing to move?
Probably for the right price. I mean, like.
What would you be looking for? Because you have Dennis and I guess Dirk for another year. Jesus.
Maybe. I mean, Dirk might retire.
And then there's Wesley Matthews, who I guess Wesley Matthews should probably be the starting point of if you're going to move somebody, because at least he can Yeah. I mean,
I don't think they will move Harrison. Put it that way. I don't think
they will either. But I don't think it's totally off the table. Like I don't think that they consider him truly part of their future core.
Right. The team I've been looking at a little bit is Charlotte. Like,
yeah, what the hell do they do, man?
I don't know what Charlotte does. They're sitting at 11-20 right now, like 5 games out of the playoffs, and I am unclear on how this team. Like, do you look to move like guys like Cody Zeller, who I think could actually get something back? Like his contract isn't going to be underwater or anything. Do you look to move
I
don't think so. I think you just let him do his thing.
I mean, I think you have to try to move on from Batum. I don't think you can get anything valuable from Batum.
You know who's an interesting one, though, from them? Jeremy Lamb.
That's what I was about to say. Like, you have Malik Monk, who's in theory going to replace Jeremy Lamb, and Jeremy Lamb's been like the only player, I guess, other than Dwight, who's exceeded expectations this year.
Right.
I might sell high. I've never been a big Jeremy Lamb guy. And if you can get some draft pick assets for him, the question is who's looking for a guy like Jeremy Lamb? I know everyone's looking for a guy like Jeremy Lamb. Like, what kind of asset can you get in return and from whom?
Huh. That's a good question.
Who needs a 2-guard? Who needs a position locked 2-guard?
Yeah, that's the problem. He's very, very position locked. I mean, Minnesota maybe?
Yeah. New York.
The Knicks have THJ though. Like, do you really?
Yeah, you can never have. Yeah.
But like position, the problem is you don't want too many that are position locked at the 2. Like THJ is position locked at the 2. Same with Lamb.
That's true. San Antonio wouldn't want him.
San Antonio might. It's not like out of the question.
No, I mean, listen. If San Antonio gets a hair up its ass, they might, but like they don't need him, and he doesn't. It's not like they need that to get over the hump. Oklahoma City and Minnesota are out, I think. Denver's probably out. Houston, I mean, yeah, sure, Houston, of course. I mean, so same with the Warriors. They would love to have him too. Like,
well, here, in that case, let me throw you my Warriors fake trade.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So my Warriors fake trade for you is they acquire Spencer Dinwiddie from Brooklyn.
Already all in. Love Spencer Dinwiddie.
For Patrick McCaw and like additional draft capital.
I mean, yeah, I think the Warriors would pull the trigger on that.
So, like, the reason behind this is, like, let me throw some actual behind this.
No one has any idea how much McCall is going to cost next year.
Right. Like, I don't think there's any circumstance a team doesn't give him the mid-level, and it's, like, not out of the question that a team, like, throws a lot of money at him.
I don't know, man. He's kind of sucked this year, to be totally honest.
He hasn't been great this year, but, like...
So much potential.
Yeah, like, I think a team's going to throw, like, between $6 and $8 million at him. If you're the Warriors, you probably don't want to pay that.
No, they can't.
Right.
Like, they actually cannot do that.
Right. So, let's say that you're the Warriors. You know you can't pay Pat McCaw.
Yeah.
Brooklyn can pay Pat McCaw. Brooklyn probably wants to take a flyer on Pat McCaw.
Yeah.
If you're Spencer Dinwiddie, you're on 2 years at like $1.5 million each year. That locks you into a salary with Golden State. Golden State's happy because they have cost certainty for 2 years before you're an unrestricted free agent. You're getting a better player because Spencer Dinwiddie's just better than Patrick McCaw.
At least for the 2 years that he's under contract.
Right. So I would say like Pat McCaw and like if you're Golden State, you have all your draft picks. Like I'd be willing to trade Pat McCaw in my 2018 first for Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah. Yeah. The Warriors are operating on somewhat of a different mental playing field than us, certainly when it comes to understanding how this money is going to shake out. They just seem to find a way to do it every year. So,
but that's kind of my point. Like it gives you more leeway to play with because you have cost certainty with Spencer Dinwiddie at $1.5 million.
Right. No, I totally understand where you're coming from, and it makes a lot of sense to us. I think that maybe the Warriors are a little bit more certain about Pat McCaw's cost than we are. I think that's my assessment on that situation. So giving up a first, that's tricky.
But it's going to be 30th. Like, does it matter? You can just buy a second round pick if you want.
No, that's true. That's true. Though I do think that, I've heard for some people that they think that might be more difficult to do going forward.
It probably will be.
going 2 for 2. Like everyone's kind of the jig is up on buying those second round picks, and they're probably going to covet that number 30 pick. They might trade down, but they're gonna like that. Listen, conceptually, I love the idea. Makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. But
the Warriors are operating on a different plane. It wouldn't shock me in the least bit if they pulled the trigger on that exact deal. I mean, it lines up, but I think they're a little bit more certain about how much Pat McCaw is going to cost than not. And I just generally don't know if they fear losing him.
I don't think they fear losing him, but I think that being able to pick up an asset for him would be useful, unless they think they're going to be able to get him for like $3 million a year.
I think that they're of that mind frame right now, and they could be wrong. But
I would not be of that mind frame, because if I was any team looking for young talent, I would be willing to spend a good amount of my mid-level exception on him.
But I totally agree. But I think that, one, there's going to be a lot of veterans who are on max deals who are going to be falling down into mid-level range.
Sure.
Just with the way that the league is going. And two, he hasn't been very good. And
that's a key point here.
It's a very key point. He just hasn't been very good, and he's just very raw. And a mid-level exception is a pretty valuable thing, particularly. Yeah.
But if you're it's good if you're an older team that's capped out, though. And I guess that like you have to be capped out to use your mid-level exception. So like,
right.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that I just feel I brought it up a couple of times with a couple of different people with the Warriors, and they seem so much more confident that Pat McCaw is staying around, or that they at least have a total that they feel in control of the situation than I would.
Yeah.
They're operating with a lot better information, I would imagine.
Yes, they certainly are.
They're only the team that's gone on the best 3-year run in NBA history. It's the favorites to win the title again. Then again, me. So.
Yeah. What I would say is that like, if I'm Brooklyn, I make this like this is the guy that like I try and actually sign with my mid-level money
100%.
Because I am going to be operating over the cap next year because of cap holds. So like,
Sam, it's a beautiful trade. It's a wonderful concept. I cannot laud you enough. The Warriors don't live in our little fantasy world, though. It's sad because it's really a fun place to be.
Now that we've talked enough about our fantasy world, Dieter, tell the people where they can find your work. I think we're going to call it on the day. I already got the look from my girlfriend because, as I told you, we have to go to a dinner tonight.
You got to go to a dinner. So you can find me at the San Jose Mercury News, my podcast, The Daily Dieter, on V Sporto, where we talk about Bay Area sports, and that mostly means the Warriors once football season ends here, and on Twitter at D Kurtenbach, KURTENBACH.
Go follow Dieter's work. He is a great friend. He is awesome at his job. If you like anything with Bay Area sports, there's really no one else that you should be going to other than my company, The Athletic. Please go subscribe to The Athletic over.
I knew you were going to shoehorn that shit in there.
Please keep me employed by subscribing over at The Athletic. We'll be back. Like I said, I have the Christmas Eve podcast with Jared Weiss recorded already. You'll have that on December 24th. But until next time, thank you all for listening. We will talk soon. Bye.